All right. Okay. Welcome to another episode of Navigating Consciousness. And yeah, I have a few things to talk about today. But just before I get into it, just for anyone who might be interested, if you want me to take a look at your human design body graph, or if you want me to, help you in some other way with the work that I do, if there's something that you're feeling challenged by and you want some assistance with it, I'm happy to give that. So we got a chat, and if you want any of these services while I'm actively speaking to you here, just tell me about it in the chat, and I'll be happy to get to it. Um, so, okay, one of the things, I'm just going to pull up my notes. One of the things I wanted to talk about is purpose, and in particular, how to find it. And at the same time, I guess what I can tie in here, I also wanted to talk about, the idea of authority in the context of human design. If you, for anyone familiar with this system, and there's lots of people talking about it, websites, YouTube channels. I have a number of episodes where I'm talking about human design and the idea of strategy and the idea of authority. Hey, Allison. Um, so yeah, authority is the decision-making process, but that's what's called inner authority. Inner authority in your human design body graph is either going to be it's going to be your splenic center, or it's going to be your sacral center, or it's going to be your solar plexus, your emotional center, or it's going to be your heart or your G center. Any of these centers, when defined in the absence of the other centers, are going to be your authority, and that is your inner authority, and that's the authority of your body. Your body knows what it's doing, right? Your body is developed for this world, and it's interfacing with the totality of all that is at all times. Our mind, our personality, um, is more of an observer, right? Ideally, but the mind has its own authority. It's called outer authority. So the inner authority of the body graph is itself like this idea of inner authority. That's outer authority, right? Human design is an example of outer authority. It came through the mind of a individual named Ra Uru, whose real name was Robert Krakauer. He was Ra before the human design thing started coming through him. That's what he went by. But yeah, human design is a product of Ra's outer authority. His mind made it. ChatGPT, I've been playing around with it. Me and my wife have been playing around with it this past week. It's pretty cool, and it's very much an expression of outer authority, right? It's like you ask it a question, it gives you an answer. Just because it's giving you an answer, though, doesn't mean that you have to do it. It doesn't mean you should take it, and that goes for anyone's outer authority. There's all kinds of creative types, creative projects, all sorts of ideas, philosophies, books and videos and presentations and all kinds of things, trying to give us some sense of direction, trying to guide us toward our purpose, like human design, like astrology, like any of these things. And it's up to our inner authority about whether or not we do it. We're all being exposed to all kinds of things all the time through the outer authority of all the people on the planet, and now the outer authority of a artificial intelligence, which is interesting to say the least. But it's still about inner authority in terms of saying yes or no. The outer authority of our society, by and large, up until very recently, by and large, has been the societal structures, you're sick, you go to the doctor, you know. You get educated in the public school system, right? All these things. These are outer authority structures that were basically developed to minimize the access that we all have to our inner authority. And that was kind of okay for a time. Um, you know, people, you know, people's lifespan got, you know, extended. Less children died. You know, more food for most people. You know, poverty, and it's all coming to an end. And obviously, poverty is a real problem, and is going to be a real problem moving forward. And as the like food distribution systems start to not work as well, you know, we've seen train derailments, we've seen, you know, doors blow off airplanes, we've seen all kinds of things that are showing us that the infrastructure that allowed for the rapid transit of all these goods and services is no longer as trustworthy as it used to be. But that's also exactly what it should be. So there's no reason to fear, right? It's about acceptance and pivoting. In terms of the previous age, right, or in terms of the age that we're coming to a close of, in terms of this cross of planning, and I've talked extensively about this in previous episodes, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about it today, this galactic cycle, because it's pretty interesting, and I think it's important to understand, you know, what the background energy is actually doing. But yeah, you know, as we're coming to a close of the cross of planning and moving into the sleeping phoenix, well, the sleeping phoenix needs to be kind of woken up, right? And so things need to kind of burn down to ash, and then something new will come out of that, out of those ashes. Little tangent. I wasn't planning on talking about this, but I have heard a couple of astrologers who I do trust, you know, word around the astrological campfire is that there will be, if there's going to be a nuclear exchange, it's going to happen in 2026. That's a very real possibility, and it might be a good idea, you know, if so. This is my external authority telling you that it might be a good idea to get, you know, to get some iodine, get, you know, a year's supply of iodine. If your inner authority agrees with that, then I would recommend doing that. At the moment, my inner authority is not telling me that I should. Of course, my inner authority is the emotional authority, which is authority over time. So I'll do it when it's the right time. If someone has sacral authority or splenic authority, that's going to be a much more immediate, like yes or no. So for anyone who's watching right now, either while I'm doing this live or, you know, in the future, if you have sacral authority or splenic authority and you get a feedback that it's like, yeah, that's correct, I would go get some iodine. Not because there is going to be a nuclear exchange in the future. There might be, there might not be, but it's just energetically correct for you to get iodine. Maybe you need it for some other reason, right? Your body says yes, like let's get some iodine. So, okay, cool. Okay, so I wanted to talk about the lines in the human design body graph. Because it ties in directly to like purpose, you know. So right now, talking about this galactic cycle, we have the 37th gate and the 40th gate being one half of that cross, and the 9 and the 16 being the other half. So these are gates that are in opposition. They're all 90 degrees from each other. The 37 is opposed to the 40. The 9 is opposed to the 16. The 16 is 90 degrees separate from the 37 and the 40, as is the 9. And so that forms a cross, right? There, you know, there's a horizontal and a vertical line. We're in terms of how this galactic cycle plays out. we're in the first line of this galactic cycle, and we're going to move into the sixth line of the sleeping phoenix when it happens, because it's a precession, right? So it's moving backwards, like the precession of the equinox. Like the lunar nodes also are in precession; they move backwards. So when the new age comes, when the new cycle starts, it's going to start from the sixth rather than from the first line. As we're coming to a close of this first line phase and moving into the sixth, we're going to be kind of straddling that, right? So all the themes of the cross of planning, we're deep, like deep in it, deep in it, because we're coming to the end and we're in the first line, which is the line of the foundation. It's the line of the investigator, right? So what's happening in our world right now, right? Everything's becoming atomized. Our awareness is going to the most minutest of details. We got particle colliders, right? Looking for the smallest possible particle, just dividing gender into like almost like a limitless number of categories. It's all like being taken apart, because that's the first line process, and that's been happening since 1960, 1961, when the first line phase started. Marriage and family and career were big themes in the cross of planning. And as we're moving into the sixth line phase of the sleeping phoenix, the sixth line is completely opposite from the first. The first line is all about taking it apart, going into detail, gathering as much information as you possibly can. The sixth line's like, I don't care about any of it. The sixth line is, on one hand, the sixth line is very, very aloof. On the other hand, it's like the Buddha, right? It's the Buddha consciousness. I don't need to do anything. I'm very content to sit under this tree and contemplate my, existence, and whatever comes, I'll just do. And if nothing comes, then I won't do anything, right? That's sort of the general nature of that sixth line. Talking about purpose, talking about meaning, it's imperative that we all find our here's the opportunity, right? Individual purpose, individual meaning. In the past, the background energy has given us meaning through the external authorities, right? Through the job that we have, the career, the family, right? Having children, getting married. This is what gave people meaning. This is what gave people structure in their life, and it's not doing it anymore. Okay, finding your purpose is what is available. No one is having kids. Kids provide a lot of purpose. A life devoid of purpose leads to some nasty outcomes. Kids, family, career, in most cases, will not satisfy now. So what do? The things that used to provide meaning and purpose, the things that used to provide satisfaction to the vast majority of folks, is no longer providing satisfaction. People can have children in lots of cases. Obviously, there's a lot of young people who are having things done to their body that will make it impossible for them to have children, moving on. A lot of people financially can't afford, to have a family, right? It's pressure, it's stress. It's not even if they do, right? It's like I said, it's pressure and stress. It's not satisfying. So many people are under so much pressure and so much stress from things that used to not really be like a big deal. But what I'm saying is that it's all kind of correct that it's happening this way. We have to stop looking at how things used to be and what used to provide satisfaction and what used to provide meaning and what used to provide purpose, and start moving forward into our own concepts, our own like personal expression of these things, which is the sixth line phase of the sleeping phoenix. It's selfishness, and selfishness can be altruistic. And I've talked about this before too, but it's really the best way forward, right? If you are truly doing what is right for you, then there's no way it's wrong. You know, if other people have a hard time with what you're doing, that just means they're not the right person for you. It's not, or it's just not the right time. Another thing to keep in mind is that 50% of the population, or maybe it's even 51% of the population, is getting their inner authority from their emotional wave. 51% of the population has emotional authority, which means that you might have a certain interaction with someone one day and it's good and it seems like you can move forward with them, and then the next day they're in a completely different part of their wave, they're in a completely different mood, and what you thought was going to be now looks very unrealistic, and you feel like, well, this person's not really reliable. But it's just about understanding that emotional beings have to go through that. Emotional beings require the ups and downs, and they're going to change their bearing and their demeanor based on how they're feeling, and it's got more than likely nothing to do with you. You're just there. Some people are very provocative. Some people provoke, right? And then the sort of like emotional response from the other is a consequence of that provocation. But that just is showing you, because there's, in your human design body graph, there's the 39th gate. So for those of you who have the 39, that is a gate of provocation. It's in the root center. And the partner of the 39 is the 55, which is going to be the dominant gate of the next age, right, of the sleeping phoenix. The 39 is the fuel for the 55. So the 39 provokes the 55, and the response that the 55 gives is going to let the 39 know whether or not it's a good time to provoke this person in this way. So, the idea being, like, if you are 39 and you're connecting with like, I have the 55 and my wife has the 39. So, if she provokes me with her energy and I respond with anger or frustration, then that just means, maybe it's a good day to take some space and, like, both do our own thing, because pushing through the energy is just not there for that. Neither of us need it. We have to go find something else, right? That's a good understanding to have when you're talking about relationships, when you're talking about individuals meeting up and how their energy works. So there's plenty of people with the 55th gate, and there's plenty of people with the 39th gate, and they're going to come into contact with each other, frequently, because they'll attract each other because they both have what the other needs. There's chemistry there that can be made. I've done plenty of readings for plenty of couples who have this same thing, because it's a gate of passion. Pardon me. So the 39-55, there's a lot of emotion there potentially, and that can go all kinds of ways. But there's also, passion, and if you're a passionate person, you want to be with someone who you can be passionate with, right? And in all different kinds of ways, like, obviously, sexually, but just being passionate about, worldviews, and just, like, really having the energy to stick to what to be right, and both of you supporting that in the other. But if you have the 39 or you have the 55, and it's not working, then that doesn't mean that it can't work. It just means it's not working right now. And that's true for a lot of different chemistries. All the idea that opposites attract is correct, right? It's like, we do need what we don't have, and ideally we need it in a complementary way, right? So the 39 and the 55, the 37 and the 40, the 34 and the 20, right? These are all good, but also very potentially passionate connections, right? And ones that are very much dependent on like mood, especially the 3740 and the 3955, because these connect to emotional centers. Um, so yeah, so in finding your purpose and meaning, and a big part of that is who are you connecting to and who can you do it with. Just also just kind of giving people, like, understanding that most, half the people who you meet are going to be very, very emotional. They're going to change how they feel about you or about what you're doing together, based on their wave. They're up or down, and they have to wait for their, clarity before they can say yes or no. While they're in that wave, you just give them space. But then that also, creating that space allows you to maybe connect with someone else who's in a different part of their wave, who won't be provoked, in the same way, who won't have a response, right? They're in their like emotional clarity, and it's, good to move something forward with them that day. This is really what's going to be happening more and more, and this is why, focusing on like selfishness is really very, very important, because we can afford to be selfish. The 55th gate is it's a gate of it's the gate of abundance, right? It's like there's no shortage. It's just, is it correct? Is it not correct? What are you limited by? Pluto's been in the 60th gate. That's the gate of limitation. It's moving into the 41st gate this year, which is pretty exciting. For a moment, I think in April through May, it's going to be in the 41st gate, and then it goes retrograde back into the 60 for the rest of the year, and then we'll move into the 41st again in 2025. Yeah, so the 60th gate is all about limitation, and the 41st gate's about decrease. It's the 41st gate's interesting. It's a start codon. So the 41st gate is a gate of initiation, but it's not it's like it's the start, right? So there's nothing or very little. But the 55th gate becoming the sort of dominant gate, like the theme is, abundance, and we're in the sixth line of the 55th gate, or we'll be moving into it in 2027, or, we're sort of in that boundary line right now. So yeah, we can afford to be selfish. There's no shortage. The cross of planning was a lot about shortage. It's like we only have, we have to make sure that we have what we need, right? That's like the big theme. Moving forward, it's really like there's no such thing. It's not about need anymore. It's not about like the tribe needing to be fed. It's not about any of these things, right? It's about something very different. Okay. Talking about lines. And this will all kind of connect, I guess, when I can make it happen. So we're in the first line phase. The first line is the investigator, right? The first line is about taking things apart, right, to their smallest particle. That's been the phase that we've been in since the 60s, since the early 60s. Before that, we were in the second line phase. The second line phase of the cross of planning was about like kind of hope, or optimism, kind of you look at the life. So the second line phase would have been the early 1900s through to the 1960s, and just the challenges of that time. The First World War, Great Depression, entering into World War II, but also the sort of willingness that people had to like go along with it. The second line's the hermit, it's the guru. Second line waits for the call. So for those of you with second lines in your body graph, especially in your Sun Earth, you're really designed to wait until someone calls on you, right? Or till something calls on you to participate with them. These are all examples of that call, right? It was like being called up to fight in a war, or being called to uh, participate in society in a different way, like the New Deal, and like all these things. And but just this sense that things will work out. That's very much a second line phase. And so you had, FDR and his fireside chats, and it's like, yeah, things are not great, but they're going to get better. And just rallying that sort of that confidence and that certainty that things are going to move forward as very much a second line phase. When you go to the third line, which would have been like the 1840s through to the early 1900s, that's like, the third line's all about, like, it's about money, and it's about power, and about like leading and following and all this. And so, it's like the age of, like, robber barons, right? And just the acceleration of the like colonial sort of outlook, and just scooping up, fighting over territory, scooping up resources, John D. Rockefeller, and all these different folks who, came up in towards the end of that phase, being incredibly wealthy. That was all kind of going on there. And so we can see how these themes kind of play out, right, as the different line gets activated. So like what I was saying, we're moving out of the first line. So the first line phase that we've been in since the 60s, we've seen, the like investigation, right, the sort of removal of all the superfluous information, and getting like just the facts, right? That's like a big, there's that TV show Dragnet, right, in the late 50s. It was like a perfect example, like just the facts, ma'am, right? And that's very much what a first line phase is. I have a sixth line in my profile. Anyone who has a sixth line in their profile right now is very confused, because the world isn't about a sixth line. It's not about being above it all. It's about being in it, like totally in it and totally focused, and just like doing everything very meticulously and with detail. And we see also, who's kind of making like the most money, like, and I've talked about this before, right? Like, who's the focus, like who gets the most notoriety? It's people who focus, people who are very good at a very specific thing, and because we're in the cross of planning, it's also people who work really well with other people. So athletes who play on teams, for example. The Nobel Prize is, given to like committees. It's not a lone scientist, it's not a Newton who existed in the sixth line phase, right? He brought calculus at the beginning of the cross of planning, or so. But he was like he was a lone genius. It's like that the energy doesn't support the lone genius right now. It's very much like, do you play well with others? Are you able to focus your effort towards like something that can be seen as a common good for as many people as possible? Again, moving forward into the sixth line phase of the Sleeping Phoenix, none of these things are going to be all that important. There will still be people, because we were all born in this cross of planning, and we're going to be moving into the Sleeping Phoenix. So we're all going to be carrying the energy of the cross of planning. So the cross of planning will still be present on the planet for quite a while, right? So there will still be lots of opportunity to, find your tribe, and like, do something collective and focus, and bring skill, a focused skill set to the benefit of as many people as possible. All that's going to be very available for those who want to, but then there will be many more options that are opening up. And the sixth line is like, doesn't want to do any of that. The sixth line doesn't want to be a part of anything. The sixth line wants to be free. The sixth line wants to be individual, right? It's the Buddha, right? Like, you couldn't coerce the Buddha to do anything, because he would, like, the Buddha's not like attached. There's nothing you could take from him, including his own life. because it's not, none of that's like important. The most important thing is that, he does what he does when he wants to do it. And that's the phase that we're moving into. And I can't wait, because I have a 6 line in my profile, and that makes like total sense to me. So yeah, so that's something, that we can look forward to. Anyone with a 6 line in their profile, the world's going to make a lot more sense in a few years. So just hold on, it's going to be fine. It's a good time for anyone with a 6 line in their profile to also just make sure that they're not stuck in any 3rd line phase. So let me explain that very briefly. Any 6 line that you have in your body graph is going to go through a 3rd line phase. So the first 30 years of our life, anywhere where there's a 6th line, is going to be a 3. So I have a 6th line in my design Sun Earth. So I had a 3rd line phase for the first 30 years, very active, very participatory, really focused on, money in a variety of ways. Played the stock market as a teenager, like all this stuff, and I was not bad at it. And then that all kind of stopped, in my late 20s, early 30s. And I started to remove none of this stuff seemed to matter to me in the same way. And I couldn't build up the enthusiasm, that I used to have for going out and being around a lot of people and like being a part of something, So anyone who has a 6th line, you can still be, even if you're 30, 40, 50, you can still have a lot of attachment to that 3rd line phase. I have a client who's very much, still in that 3rd line phase. Mentally, physically, he's not. Physically, he's moved out of that. But in terms of his age, his chronological age. But still just very focused on being a part of the thing, being a part of the scene. So for anyone who has a 6th line, it's a good time to reflect on what you're participating in and whether or not it's what you actually want to do. And I would recommend not doing as much as you possibly can. And following your own inner authority. We're going to be moving through, like, it's already very troubling what's happening, and that's not going to stop, right? We're not going to hit a pause button here. And in general, because the background energy is shifting away from participating to not participating, I would highly recommend not participating in as much of the collective things as possible. Obviously this is a election year in this country. There's a lot of political turmoil in a lot of different places. Don't. Like, it's such a trap, it's such a waste of your energy. It's not the way that the world is going. The world is not moving towards a greater and greater, political, umbrella. There's the threat of it, of course, with the, all the usual players, the WEF and all these other folks talking about, a new world order and a global government and, all the technology that they're trying to roll out, Bill Gates putting out some patent or taking out some patent on some like nanotech that's going to, inject us with vaccines when we pick up a piece of clothing or something crazy like that. But that's not going to fly. The energy is just not there to support that. And the reason why this stuff is even coming out is because the energy is just not there to support that, right? Like, that's not of benefit. The cross of planning, it really was about benefiting the most people. Like when the smallpox vaccine was first created, I mean, people were living in conditions where they may have really benefited from that. Like, if you're not bathing and you're living with animals and your food and water is contaminated with who knows what, yeah, maybe a smallpox vaccine makes sense. But it's like that idea has been taken to such an extreme place. And then again, in that first line phase, well, we'll just make vaccines for everything, every single thing. We'll have a vaccine for cancer. We'll have a vaccine for, you name it. They're talking about putting mRNA in all kinds of things. Hundreds of shots are being, not introduced, but talked about certainly. And the technology is being developed to, deliver it en masse. But it's not how it's going to go. But you can see how the energy would feed into that, right? That we can, take this one thing that worked and apply it to like everything, But it's, again, like totally wrong. But it also comes with that social pressure. Do it for the good, do it for the collective, do it for the tribe, do it so that you can meet up with your family for the holidays, right? That's the end. It's the end of this cross of planning. Before, it wouldn't have been like that. People, looking back on the second line phase, right, when people made real sacrifices for their country. I think they did it very willingly, and I think they felt very good about it because the energy was there to support it. That's not what the energy is doing right now, though. And I'm not talking about the individuals out there. I'm talking about the majority of folks who are just playing along with the background. They're just doing what's available. They're not necessarily thinking about it too much or considering, why they might be asked to do this or that, or why it's important, why sports are so important, or why these like political games, which is sports of its, it's all wrestling, right? It's WWF, or I just showed my age, WWE, it's all, it's all nonsense. But yeah, it's the end. It's the end. And we're about to move into something. I think it's going to be pretty spectacular, but it's going to require all of us to be very individualistic and really look at what it is that we want and finding the people that we can do it with. So, okay. All right, Allison, you talked about me taking care of my tribe. So yeah, so this is good actually, because, Allison, Allison, who's been a client of mine for quite a while, in her body graph, she has, quite a bit of tribal activation. So, she's asking, like, as we shift through this, is her role in the tribe still going to be like important? And what does she do if that shifts? And what I'd say to that is, it's still going to be important to who it's going to be important to. The tribe is going to shift. So Allison, your role in the tribe is going to be the same, but it's going to be a different tribe. And that's going to require you to kind of do what is needed to support that tribe in a bit of a different way. And you can also expect your tribe to be more fluid, that there will be people coming in and coming out, right, based on where they're at in their wave, for example. It's going to be cool, for people who are on board and for people who are paying attention. It really is, it's a good opportunity just to let people be what they are and not force things. Just letting it go. That doesn't mean, and this is like another theme that's actually really come up this week in the work that I've been doing. It doesn't mean, being Christ-like. It doesn't mean turning the other cheek. If someone's treating you badly, it doesn't mean that you should just be like, well, that's just them in their wave, and I guess I'll, it's not like that. You can still, you need to stand up for yourself, because the age that we're moving into, you're going to need to stand up for yourself, because no one's going to do it for you, right? Unless it works for them. They'll stand up for you if it's good for them. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's just how it's going to be. We already see it, the police The police don't come when we call, right? No one's taking care of us. There was this Gypsy Rose, I think was her name. This poor girl whose mother had Munchausen by proxy, and was making her believe that she needed all these medical interventions. She had a feeding tube inserted. She didn't need it, but a doctor did that. Her mom took her to a doctor who put a feeding tube in her. Uh, yeah, guns are good. Um, her mother took her to a doctor who gave her a procedure that she didn't need. And that's selfishness, right? That's also, abundance of a sort, right? People just doing it because they get paid, and because they want, they want that, so they're going to do it. um, that's not altruistic selfishness. That's just straight selfishness. And it doesn't really benefit anybody. But again, six lines got its third line part of it. So you will have a lot of people who will just follow, and just do whatever, right? Because they're going to make some money. There's going to be some capital gain on their end, so they'll just do it, and they won't care what the consequences are. And again, we're already seeing that, right? We're seeing that quite a bit. Um, the fentanyl epidemic, for example, the vaccines, right? That was money. That was just people who were like, we can make money, so we're gonna make money, and that's, they didn't care what the consequences were, even though they, pretended to. Um, okay, all right. Is there anyone who wants anything looked at? Allison, is there anything that I can do for you? Or Frankie, I see you there too. Is there anything that I can work on for either of you right now? Take your time. I'll drink a little bit of water. The usual. Okay. All right, Allison, I'll just do a quick check-in here and see if there's anything we can open up for you, specifically around this specifically around this theme of I don't really get that passivity is the thing for you, but purpose, yeah, that's fine. Um, so I think this is something that I can do for both of you, actually. So Frankie and Allison, who are very loyal, and I appreciate that. Uh, Something we can do just around this idea of altruistic selfishness. There's something that doesn't vibe right. There's something that's not resonant with that. So, and this is also going to affect the kind of people that you can interact with, right? So it's very important when we're being selfish, that we're selfish with the right people, right? That our self-interest is going to be realized, and it's going to be met, and it's going to also be done with people who can realize their own self-interest in that same process. And it's going to be very interesting to see what kind of world gets created when that's the sort of dominant energy. People really looking out for themselves, but not in the way that we're used to. Because people who look out for themselves in the cross of planning, it's a very different vibe than people who look out for themselves in the Sleeping Phoenix, for example. So yeah, so really just about attracting the people that you can do it with, and knowing what that feels like when you're in the presence of someone that you can be altruistically selfish with. There's just a lot of people in your field that you've tried to move your life forward with, but it just hasn't really worked, or you've tried to accomplish things with, tried to find allies, right? Allies being a big theme in my life right now. Finding the people who can not only understand what it is I'm trying to do, but want to do it with me, and who benefit directly by participating in it with me. So, and it's kind of hard to know what it is you want or what it is that's even available, because again, we're kind of limited. You know, if you're, you know, it's winter, right? So it's like if you want to go swimming and it's winter, your options are kind of limited in a certain way, but you know, it's limited by the weather, but it doesn't mean that you can't find a place to go swimming. There was a human design analyst who was talking about this. I'm kind of lifting this from her. But I thought it worked really well in terms of this, like Pluto in the 60th gate, the gate of limitation. You can still achieve what you want. It just requires you to think a little bit outside of what is sort of normal. You know, you can take a trip somewhere where you can go swimming. If money is tight and you can't do that, then there's, you know, indoor pools and like all this. But maybe at the same time, maybe your desire to go swimming is based on other people's desire, you know, the expectation that that folks have that you're picking up on, because we're all, you know, empathic to a degree. We're all very tuned in to the needs of the people around us to a degree. So good to know, you know, is this something I really want, or is this something the people around me might want, and I just want to be a part of this group, so I'm going to also want the same things. So yeah, you know, who you're around is a big part of informing what it is that's actually available to you, because you need their energy as well to kind of go along with it. So all we're going to do here is just clear yeah. It's just, there's just too many people from the past taking up room in your mind and in your field. And it's just, you know, there's this, we've all been conditioned, right, to think that, like what Frankie is just saying here, you know, family is family, no matter what they say, you know, all this stuff. It's like, yeah, we've all been conditioned to be really attached. You know, we all have attachment issues. There's really, I don't see a lot of people healthfully attaching. You know, there's dependency and there's desperation, and it's not always about that, but that does play into it. And we're made to feel that way, you know, by our media, you know, by our stories, you know, that you know, you want to find love, you know, no matter what. Again, family, children, purpose. This is how you find purpose. You find someone, you have a family, you have children, you do what you need to do to support that family, and then your children have children, and then you're a grandparent, and then your role shift, you know, all this stuff. It's all going away. We don't need that sort of attachment style any longer, where again, we'll let people do things that we really don't agree with. But you know, and we're seeing like how many people, you know, over COVID or over Donald Trump or Joe Biden or whoever, right? It's like, yeah, the energy isn't there to connect with people who don't see the world the same way that you do, and that's totally cool. It's totally fine. It's exactly as it should be, you know, in a certain way. So there's all these people in your field, Allison and Frankie, that are in your past. You're never going to see them again. You know, you can reflect on your time with them, but that's just taking energy, right? And it's really about making the space for new people to start coming in, and for that to be also very normal, right? That it's like, yeah, let's clear the space, let's clear all these people out of your field so that new people can come in, but let's also make it that the new people coming in, just because they're there doesn't mean you have to say yes. It doesn't mean that they're the right person. You still have to trust your inner authority to be giving you the best guidance. You know, do you have the energy to do something with this person? Does it feel right to do something with this person? It doesn't matter what the reasons are. The reasons is mind. You know, your body knows what the truth of it is. So yeah, so not only clearing out all this, all these people taking up all this space in your field, making space for new people to come in, but also shifting the connection style so that you can just be like, casual is not the right word, but you don't need to take it as serious as we've all been, told that we should or that we need to, because we live in a limited environment. There's a endless amount of people to interact with. There's a limitless amount of opportunity. We are abundant in these areas. So, yeah, so just opening up the both of you on that level to the abundance that is actually there for you, and the people who are there who can help you realize that abundance in any way that you might want. Maybe it's about money, maybe it's about something else. Obviously, when we talk about abundance, we tend to focus on the material, but that's not the only way that this goes. Okay, good. Yeah, people can be cruel. This is true. Yeah, okay. Well, that was nice. That was a nice shift. Okay, well, thank you, Frankie, and thank you, Allison. I really appreciate you both for showing up today. And thank you to everyone else who is watching in the now or in the future. I appreciate you all. And that's all for today.